Hey there, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jennifer Spohr, and I am a spiritual advisor, channel, and an Akashic Records master consultant and teacher. I'm here to support other amazing, beautiful beings such as yourself to remember the true essence of who you are and to live fully expressed and joyfully embodied in that truth. Today, I'm here to share my story with you. And I believe that, we all have a lot of stories about our journey, right? That our life is this amazing book filled with so many different chapters that tell more about who we are and how we got to where we are today. And that's really what I'm here to do today, is to share some of those stories with you, to give you further insight into who I am and what led me here to do what I do today. And so one thing I've always believed in is fate, and destiny. Fate being defined as what we're born into. That is, the experiences and circumstances that our soul chooses uh, before we get here. And then destiny being defined as, our ability to make a free will decision in response to those circumstances. Now, knowing that our soul chooses, right, what we're going to be born into here in service to our own evolution and the evolution of the collective. And my entire life has been a series of choices, and all of our lives are really a series of choices, right? Where we use our free will to either positively or, inadvertently negatively influence our path. It's all about learning, and that's why we're here, to learn in service to ourselves, in service to each other, to evolve. And we're also here to enjoy the ride. And it's so important to give ourselves permission to feel joy, to feel that love and enjoy the ride as a state of being. We don't do that often enough, and it's so important. So I want to stay on path with you, right? Because I value your time. So to share, one of my earliest memories of making an intentional decision to change the trajectory of my fated life was back when I was 16. I experienced a lot of trauma in my childhood, and to make a long story short, things had escalated to a point that I felt, in order to keep myself safe, I needed to leave. So I left home at the age of 16 to go out on my own as a means to do what I needed to do to survive, to literally survive at that point. And then, fast forward a couple of years, and I started working in retail when I was 19. And the thing is, I always wanted to be a teacher ever since I was a little girl, ever since I could remember. And I made a decision at 19, that because of my financial situation at that point and how much I had to work to support myself, that I was going to forgo college and commit to this new endeavor, working in retail, right? And it turned out to be an amazing decision, because working in retail incorporated so much of what is natural about me and what I love, which is helping people. Now, later down the road, I would find out that I was actually dating my purpose, right? Versus being fully married to it, fully immersed in my gifts and what I'm here to contribute. But that choice was another very intentional choice that influenced the trajectory of a major part of my life, because I ended up staying in retail and I built a very successful career out of that. I actually, was one of the youngest corporate operations directors in a very big company at the time, at the age of 31, and one of the few females as well. So it felt really good to build the success that I had built in that career. And I really loved what I did for so long. And I've always had to believe in whatever it is that I have chosen to pursue. And I loved it for a long time. I reached a point on my journey, as I know that so many of us have, where I checked the boxes off the list of what traditional society teaches us or has taught us that it means to achieve success. And I got to a point in my career where I was no longer feeling challenged. I was no longer feeling like I was making a difference. And that's really when, I like to say, the fog started to lift. I really started feeling into what might be next for me. And a lot of fear came up around that, because there were a lot of questions around, you know, how would I make the same amount of money somewhere else? How would I support myself? I had a lot of limiting beliefs about, having not chosen to get a degree. Who else would hire me at that point? So I was wrought with a lot of societal programming. And that's because, what I would come to find out is that I had achieved all of this success, right? And had so many blessings in my life. But a lot of them were from a place of survival. They were from a space of fear, a space of that, I thought I had to prove myself, and achieve all of these external things in order to be loved and in order to be safe. And I would come to realize this. What I also realized when I started feeling into what was next for me is, you know, I didn't know myself, because in my career at that time, I was on all the time. I was in a job where I was required to be essentially on call and available for any issues or decisions that popped up that needed to be made. So I embarked on this journey of rediscovering who I was, and in many ways, for the first time in my life, because so much, I still don't remember a lot of my childhood, but what I do remember, I spent a lot of it really just trying to stay under the radar. And then, those early years when I was out on my own, so much of the time was spent working and really just trying to survive. So in my 30s, I was faced with, really getting to know myself for the first time in a lot of ways. And so I really started tapping back into my spiritual gifts as well, because I'd always been sensitive ever since I could remember, but I shut a lot of that down because, that wasn't part of the criteria, right? That I heard or that I was taught, that I needed to achieve success and to survive. So I really started tapping into my spiritual gifts again, really opening up to my body and my energy, and to God, to Mother, Father, God. But I didn't take action, right, to change my job at the time. And it would be another year or two after that awakening that I would come into the catalyst that would really propel me into taking action and embodying these changes in my life. And that was when my mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer. She, at the time, it was a very, there really aren't words. It was a very difficult journey. She, from the time she was diagnosed until she transitioned, she lived for 14 months. So you can imagine what that experience must have been like for her and for all of us. But during that time, I was living on the opposite end of the country. I was in New Jersey, she was in Idaho, so I was flying back and forth as much as possible to be with her and to try to help out my family, to be with my family. And there was this one defining moment when I was next to my mom's bedside, and this was days, just days before she passed. And I found myself in this particular moment, my phone started blowing up, ringing and messages going off from some issue that was happening. And I don't even remember the issue that was happening, at this point. But I found myself in this moment where I looked at my phone and then I looked at my mom, and I was aware that I was being faced with yet another opportunity to choose, am I going to be present to whatever this fire is that needs to be put out for my work? Or am I going to choose to be present in this now moment with my mom, who I know is about to pass? And so in that moment, it was in that moment that I made the decision that I was not going to allow myself to be a victim of circumstance, to be stuck in this life. I had absolutely no idea what my path was going to be beyond what I had accomplished up to that point. I just knew that I could no longer live the way that I was living. And so that was really the beginning of the end of that chapter of my life. And what ended up happening is, at the time I was, essentially given an ultimatum because remote work culture didn't really exist, prominently anyway. So in order to be closer to my family, I would need to step down from my career. And so I did that. I chose to step down from my career. And I always tell people when I share this part of my story, it was so much like the lyrics of a country song, right? It's like, I literally rented out my house in New Jersey, packed up my car, headed out west, drove out to Idaho in 4 days. And I can tell you that was one of the most liberating experiences of my life to date, was making that drive across the country by myself in 4 days. It felt so freaking magical and amazing. I didn't know what was coming, but I knew something big was happening. So when I got out to Idaho initially, after my mom passed, I still didn't know that I was going to start a business and do the work that I was doing today. All of that unfolded as in real time as I was having these experiences, right? And that's how it works. The magic really happens, and God really answers our prayers when we rise up and make the leap first. And so it was really through my own journey of spiritual awakening and transition and moving and all that was happening in my life at that time that formed, you know, the idea on my heart to pursue this work. And so what was happening is, at the time, I was so abundantly supported from so many, therapists, healers. I had readings and coaching. And what I was finding at the time is that I was hard pressed to actually find someone who I could receive support from, who could not only relate to what I was experiencing in terms of this awakening and literally changing who I was, and then how I could then integrate that, right, into my physical reality. As I'm sure many of you watching this right now know, that sometimes it can feel challenging to take what we have in our consciousness and then translate that in, and manifest that into our physical reality. That is, those changes in who we're becoming. And that's what led me to decide that I was going to be an entrepreneur, because I felt so strongly that, I wanted to support other people who were experiencing these tremendous shifts of transformation and remembrance in their lives, to support them in navigating those experiences, remembering the truth of who they are, and then living embodied in that. And that's what led me to this work. And so uh, it's been several years since I've became an entrepreneur now. And there are lots of stories, right? Within that story. Deciding to create my own path, to pave my own path, and to meet a need in the world that I saw was missing, is one of the most courageous things that I've ever done, ever. And it still is. And it's also the most rewarding. It has served so much in its own capacity to shape who I am today. And even on that journey, I have been called to higher frequencies, to so many journeys of continued evolution and stepping into more and more of the truth of who I am. And all of this life, it all began with a series of choices. And I'm so thankful and grateful for this life and for all of the experiences I'm having, and for the most sacred gift of supporting other beautiful, amazing beings on their journey to discover and live fully expressed in their own truth as well. There truly is no greater gift than that. And as our journey continues to go on, we all continue to become more and more deeply embodied in that truth. But it all started with a series of choices, a decision to move beyond awareness into action, right? And so no matter where you are on your journey, whether you feel you're at the beginning stages of making a major career transition, similar to the one that I shared with you, whether you feel like you need to make a move for yourself to provide a better life for yourself, or you might be in a place where you've already discovered so much about the truth of who you are, and now you're in a space of being ready to live fully embodied in that, to translate that into physical action. No matter where you are, it is about moving beyond awareness and into action. And I witness you and I honor you in that, and know in your body the truth that God would not put an awareness, an idea, a calling on your heart to move towards something that you're not already fully equipped to achieve. So the secret to moving through all of this is really that knowing, and it's humility. It's your willingness to be the student, to be curious, and to continue to learn. And I wish you all of the amazing joy, abundance, prosperity, and all of the loving experiences on your path, on this amazing path that you're on. And if you are feeling guided to receive deeper support in embodying your gifts, in embodying this amazing life that you're living and the future endeavors you're being called to, I am here to support you. It is my great joy to support you. So I'm going to leave you with the link to my website where you can learn more about me and how we can work together if you're feeling guided in that direction. I'd love to know also, if you can relate to any of this as well, because there is such a gift in us, sharing openly our experiences with each other and deepening our connection with each other. I am sending you so much love.